They say nothing falls from the sky into our laps. I disagree. Things do fall indeed. It's just that they may not be what we ordered. In today's new episode, we've compiled a collection of the most unexpected gifts from the heavens, and not all of them are pleasant. I wish you an enjoyable viewing experience. And of course, let's get started. In 2013, the Italian island of Sicily became the stage for a spectacular show. Mount Etna, one of the most active volcanoes on the planet, put on a real feast for the eyes. A powerful eruption, accompanied not only by fountains of lava, but also by a hail of stones from the heavens. This continued on March 5th and 6th. The force of the eruption was such that the entire northeastern slope of the volcano was covered with mountains of ash, and porous hot stones were scattered over a large distance. It seemed as if they were pouring from the sky. Perhaps such precipitation on the inhabitants of Sicily is rare, and it's time to gather stones. It's unclear whether hard stones or soft mud are better. This event turned the lives of several Americans upside down. On April 11, 1902, it left an indelible mark in the memory of residents of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania. In Illinois, there was a severe dust storm, and the muddy clouds were swept up so high that they were caught by high winds and carried across the eastern part of the United States. In the skies, the dust mingled with mud, and all this mess poured down as muddy rain, coating the earth. Under a thick layer of mud were homes and fields, transport and communications. People were splattered with mud, and all they could do was wait for normal storms to wash it all away. South Dakota entered the Guinness Book of World Records due to a storm only July 23, 2010, near the small town of Vivian. Storms occur everywhere, but this was something special. Giant hail literally broke all historical records. There were hailstones up to 20 inches in circumference and weighing about 2.2 pounds. Such giants can form if powerful updrafts lift raindrops to great heights where they increase in size. More droplets stick to them and icy winds cement the union. When large hail becomes too heavy, it falls to the ground like Newton's apple. Of course, hailstones of exceptional sizes form rarely, only if the updraft is powerful. The hail spends a long time in it, and the cloud is sufficiently wet. These capabilities of its natural freezer were demonstrated to the residents of the United States by the celestial bartender. In the summer of 1994, the residents of the small town of Oakville in Washington witnessed an unpleasant event. Instead of regular rain, dense clumps of slime, similar to clear gelatin, fell from the sky. They covered all the buildings and vehicles and spread over an area of about 19 square miles. It wasn't just rain, but sticky blobs. Imagine, even the windshield wipers of your car stopped, unable to cope with the load, and the windshield turned into an opaque film. But that's not the worst part. The appearance of these sticky clumps caused many people to feel unwell, exhibiting symptoms similar to the flu virus. It turned out that these nasty sticky substances contained certain bacteria, although it was not specified exactly which ones and how pathogenic they were. But the sight of a jellyfish rain like this personally makes me feel nauseous. How nice is it when it's just snowing? In the autumn of 2014, in the city of Zamora in northwestern Spain, residents flipped through the Gospel of John looking for an answer to the question, where did these bloody rivers on the streets come from? In fact, the city witnessed a meteorological phenomenon known as bloody rain. Let's address the scientific phenomenon and find out why the clear rainwater turned blood red. The water was particularly bright in the city's fountains, and the residents sought explanations. Could it have been some dangerous chemical leak? It turned out that the cause of the alarm was microscopic freshwater algae, which, as scientists know, release a red pigment under stress. Interestingly, these microorganisms did not inhabit this region. They are found in the local bodies of water. This means that they were carried by the air. Scientists had to analyze the wind and other meteorological data, but they could not determine from which direction the bloody agitators of peace had come. In Southern California, near a bay at the San Juan Hills Golf Club, a small leopard shark landed. It was spotted by a patrol officer who was puzzled about how it got there. Not only was the ocean 5 miles away, but the very fact that the shark fell from the sky was a reason to see a psychiatrist. What's even more remarkable is that it was alive. A fall from such a height would have been fatal for most creatures, but this species might just outlive us all, including rats and cockroaches. The most obvious assumption is that a predatory bird had caught the shark from the ocean and then dropped it. Or it's still unclear who dropped whom. This phenomenon is historically called animal rain, and it happens rarely but significantly. Small aquatic animals are sucked up by a waterspout tornado, which then, weakening, drops them on land. However, credit must be given to the quick actions of the security guard. He placed the shark in a bucket of water and delivered it back to the ocean. Both of them will have something to remember. In the British seaside town of Great Yarmouth, a heavenly miracle occurred. Along with the rain, there was a massive fishfall. Meteorologists don't believe in mysticism and explain this by the same antics of tornadoes, which arise from the collision of cool air of the North Sea and the warmer breath of the land. These whirlwinds are capable of lifting and transporting fish over long distances and then flinging them wherever. The townspeople truly had a fishy day. Shiny silver fish looked quite appealing, and moreover, they were all still alive. The meat shower in Kentucky remains one of the most mysterious events in meteorology and the history of the Wild West. It happened around Olympia Springs quite a long time ago, on March 3, 1876. According to surviving records, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., pieces of something resembling red meat showered down from the sky, covering an area approximately 100 yards by 50 yards. Some pieces were 2 by 2 inches, and some were twice as large. Such fatty nuggets falling from a clear sky shocked and confused the local residents. A man named Alexander Tanny Parker collected several samples and brought them to Transylvania University for study. That's why we believe it's not a historical prank. One of the witnesses to the strange event was a local farmer's wife who saw with her own eyes how the meat fell from the sky. Interestingly, she and her husband took it as a good omen from above. It remains to be determined whose meat God sent them. Hypothetically, beef, lamb, deer, bear, horse, or human. Men who tasted it thought it was likely lamb or venison. And in the medical report about the incident, it was stated that the meat resembled the lungs of a horse, or, incredibly, a human infant. The theories were most incredible. The meat could have been regurgitated by predatory birds such as buzzard, inducing vomiting for a quick escape when threatened. Or maybe it was not meat at all, but a substance like bacteria rods that turned into a jelly-like mass during rain. But something here still doesn't add up. Do you believe the story? This is one of those rare cases where clouds of animals fall from above all at once. In 2005, the town of Odzaki in Serbia became the frog capital. Thousands of frogs literally fell from the sky. Such a phenomenon are very rare and have no scientific explanation, but in any case, we can attribute everything to severe weather conditions. We'll say that the same whirlwinds can lift light creatures into the atmosphere and transport them over long distances. And when the atmospheric pressure drops, the traveling frogs land wherever they may. The townspeople were surprised, and the frogs were even more disoriented. They were ripped from their natural habitat and dropped into an unfamiliar dry swamp of people. Probably only the children were delighted by the thousands of frogs that fell from the sky and jumped along the streets. There are a lot of spiders in Australia, a whole lot of spiders. But what we're about to show you is more than a whole lot. The locals were terrified by a real spider rain, consisting of billions of tiny spiders falling from the sky. This happened in various areas, but in South Australia, it turned into a pure disaster. Although this type of spider is harmless to humans, it's all about the quantity. Like ninjas, they descended from the sky with their silky threads, using this method that spiders have been using for millennia, climbing trees and waiting for a gust of wind. This can carry them far enough to establish a young spider community. Either way, the mass migration causes great discomfort to the locals. You step out of your house and find yourself in the social networks of spiders, which are teeming everywhere, and thankfully, not in your bed. During the winter months in Florida, unusual events occur. Sometimes iguanas fall from the sky. This strange phenomenon is linked to the reptiles' inability to control their movements in cold weather. Although they're cold-blooded themselves, they are completely dependent on the environment. When the temperature outside drops, iguanas enter a state of dormancy. All processes slow down, and the animals become immobile. If this state of suspended animation catches them in high places, trees or roofs, they might lose their grip and fall down. Have you ever dreamed that you wanted to move, but you just couldn't? As you can understand, local weather forecasts cannot warn today a heavy fall of iguanas is expected in the atmosphere. So residents have to periodically watch the sky. If a lizard just about 1.5 feet long falls on your head, keep calm. It's not dead, just frostbitten. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission warns that these iguanas may recover faster than you expect and to take defensive positions, swat with their tail, or use their sharp teeth or claws. So be vigilant when you find yourself in Florida on a cool day. This loud story is known to all. On June 3, 1908, in the territory of Tsarist Russia, near the Stony Tunguska River, an asteroid about 656 feet in diameter fell. Approaching at a speed of 23 feet per second, it exploded before contacting with the Earth's surface. But nevertheless, such a strong impact had not been experienced by the planet throughout human history. The explosion knocked down about 80 million trees over an area of 830 square miles. At least 3 people could have died from the shockwave. It was so strong that it knocked people off their feet. Radio waves from the explosion spread over a vast distance. They were detected in Germany, Denmark, Croatia, and the United Kingdom, and many legends have been created about the event, one of which even calls the fall of a celestial body the crash of an interplanetary ship. Who knows what disaster was prepared for us if the aliens did not explode in the air? Perhaps people would become extinct. The events of November 30th, 1954 in Alabama could be the plot of an action movie. 12:40 p.m., Oak Grove resident Anne Elizabeth Fowler Hodges decides to rest on her couch in her living room. 12:41, a meteorite over 4.5 billion years old finally completed its cosmic tour and burst into Earth's atmosphere. 12:46, a fiery orb streaked through the air towards the state of Alabama. Elizabeth heard the crash of her roof breaking in and immediately felt as if her left thigh had been scorched by an iron. Here's how it happened. At noon, a red-hot meteorite the size of a good-sized ball crashed into the home and struck the woman in her thigh. Yes, this ball was quite heavy, containing more iron and nickel than other samples. However, the woman was extremely lucky. The stone was in 2 parts, and the smaller one struck Elizabeth. The larger fragment landed several miles away and is now part of the collection at the National Museum of Natural History. This was the first recorded instance of a meteorite striking a human. An unexpected encounter, right? You never know. Maybe it's better to be at work at noon. On February 15, 2013, a meteorite entered Earth's atmosphere over the southern Urals and landed in the large city of Chelyabinsk. You must agree, such phenomena do not often delight the residents of Russia, and this shocking incident had far-reaching consequences. In fact, the meteorite that landed was just a fragment of a larger one, weighing around 220,462 pounds, which exploded in the atmosphere. Besides the bright flash that scared thousands of townspeople, the powerful explosion caused a destructive wave, setting up a hot cloud of dust and gas, as well as scattering numerous small fragments around the city. How were people to know it was a meteorite? Such things happen without warning, and if mysterious fast-moving objects crosses your sky on your way to work in the morning and then explodes, probably the last thing you're thinking is, oh, it's just an ordinary meteorite. The shock wave? Yes, it was a real explosive wave, affecting over 7,200 buildings, windows blowing out, injured people, scared animals, damaged cars. Around 1,500 people sought medical help, most of the injuries caused by shards. Sadly, most not minor injuries. Now for the figures. At the moment of entry and deceleration of the meteorite in the dense layers of the atmosphere, the explosion's power, according to NASA, ranged from 300 to 500 kilotons. That's almost 20 times the power of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. That should make it more clear. The scientific significance of the meteorite was so significant. This large celestial gift reminded us that the cosmic gases carry potential danger. But scientists delightedly retrieved 53 samples of extraterrestrial materials from a hole formed at the site of the asteroid's fall. And perhaps soon they can tell us more. Until, knock on wood, the next stone flies into our garden. On November 18, 2020, a remarkable glow unfolded over the Tasman Sea near New Zealand. A bright green streak swept across the night sky. The meteorite's flight was captured by a research vessel of the Australian National Science Agency. This occurred at 21:21 Pacific Standard Time. The visitor from the depths of space disintegrated upon entering Earth's atmosphere, displaying a breathtaking spectacle. An eyewitness on board reported that the meteor was incredibly bright and of enormous size. In essence, it was a fragment of a rock traveling through space. At the explosion, it adorned the sky with a fantastic green firework display. Let's envy those who witnessed this scene in person, while we are left with the nighttime footage. On January 21, 2001, the space alarm rang again, reminding us that we are all participants in a lottery. Numerous ownerless objects fly through space and can unexpectedly land anywhere. Delta II, a United States project, a rock carrier, which was used to delivering medium-sized cargoes from low Earth orbits to more remote echelons. For some reason, flying over the Middle East, this module decided to leave a memento. The titanium engine casing, weighing around 154 pounds, fell near the capital of Saudi Arabia, Riyadh. It completed its mission, but the final chord was unexpected. Usually, large pieces of space debris do not survive after entering the atmosphere. Most of them burn up. However, the persistent titanium managed to reach the ground, choosing a populated area for parking. How is it possible to control the fall of space debris if the number of flights is increasing and there are no technologies for their destruction or collection? Sometimes what falls from the sky is coming back home. In 2021, there was an unusual event involving the SpaceX rocket, the Starship prototype with the serial number SN9. During the test flight, the rocket with the spacecraft module rose to an altitude of 31,168 feet above the coast of Texas. But instead of a successful landing, the unmanned device exploded and fell back to Earth. Its 3 engines were burning methane and were programmed to subsequently shut off as it descended. The rocket reached the designated altitude. At the peak of the ascent, the Starship transitioned to a horizontal position to begin descent. This descent was controlled by large flaps on the ends of the body. The landing simulation was supposed to mimic returning to Earth's atmosphere from orbit. As it moved downwards, the engines were supposed to reignite in reverse to slow down. However, there was a malfunction of the engine, and the costly ship, engulfed in flames, crashed onto the concrete platform. It all resembles playing in a sandbox, doesn't it? The only difference is in the budget. The sand there is golden. On the endless icy expanses of Antarctica, a Google Earth satellite captured a peculiar image. There lies a strange large object that has made a trajectory in the ice near the rock of South Georgia Island. UFO enthusiasts immediately took up this intriguing case. A long object resembling a cigar seemed to have fallen from the sky and slid across the snow. They assumed that its length was at least 157 feet, and this object collided with the slope of a mountain in the south. Could this be a UFO crash scene? By its contours, it indeed resembles a ship from another world. Plus, Antarctica is one of the most isolated places on the planet, and it could well serve as a convenient parking spot for space transport. Despite scientists' skepticisms, the imagination easily paints such a fantastic picture. Early in the morning on September 19, 1976, something extraordinary happened in Tehran. In the sky above the capital of Iran near the airport, an unidentified flying object appeared, and people immediately began reporting it, with services being inundated with a flood of calls. Descriptions varied. Some said the object looked like a bird, others compared it to a helicopter, and yet others claimed it emitted an extraordinarily bright light. Radar observations and visual reports created a real confusion. 2 Iranian Air Force fighters were scrambled, and the pilots visually confirmed the presence of the UFO. As the intercepting aircraft approached the unidentified object, they began to experience significant malfunctions to their instruments and communication. All systems started to fail. And this was not an isolated incident. As reported by airlines and by the military, as soon as the planes left the vicinity of the UFO, all onboard instruments continued to function normally. This incident stands out as one of the most well-documented, corroborated by video footage and eyewitness accounts. The authorities did not disclose any specifics, but we have seen it, haven't we? Today's top topic is one of the most alarming objects that clearly did not originate from this planet. A man during his drone flight discovered this strange ruin in the middle of a clear field. He claimed to have stumbled upon the remains of a huge space crash. At first, he could not believe his eyes, but then he started to search the internet for what a damaged piece of satellite or a rocket looked like. He walked around the crash site again, took photos, returned home, and immediately wrote about his find. Surprisingly, when he returned, the mysterious debris had mysteriously disappeared. We will never know whether it was an alien shipwreck or an earthly ship, but some institution clearly preempted the spread of information. What do you think it looks like? In 2021 in the Dead Sea, a mineral was found that came from space. Obviously, it could have arrived as part of a meteorite that broke into pieces. This type of mineral was first discovered about 20 years ago, and it had a strange phosphorus oxide content. In this form, it is not found in nature on our planet. Naturally, scientists were intrigued. Another fact revealed by the chemical composition that this mineral comes from an area of very high pressure, confirming its origin in somewhere in the extreme conditions of outer space. The Allen Hills 84001 meteorite, weighing about 4.4 pounds, was discovered in 1984 in Antarctica. It is estimated to be a piece of an ancient Martian rock about 4 billion years old. Scientists found traces of organic carbon in its composition, sparking a major rhetorical debate about, is there life on Mars? How are these findings related? Organic carbon suggests that the possible presence of water in the history of the red planet, and where there's water, there might be life. Scientists also examined the meteorite for fossilized remains of microbial life. However, critics claim that after the meteorite fell to Earth, it could have been contaminated with earthly elements. Therefore, it did not conclusively tell us about life on Mars. A Russian lad named Boris Kuprianovich caused a real stir with his messages about how he used to live on Mars. Fantasizing children are not uncommon, but from an early age, Boris began to tell his parents about life on Mars, about how the planet had undergone a catastrophic war, their technologies, and space travels. His stories were not limited to Mars. He also spoke of ancient civilizations on Earth, lost continents, and secret knowledge. This story makes us ponder the mysteries of the universe. Although we cannot take Boris's word for it, we cannot deny the possibility of life on other planets. A 55-year-old man named Radek Laik claimed that he became a target of extraterrestrials. A series of meteorite impacts regularly crashed into his home. It sounds absurd, but when you hear his story, questions arise. This quirky saga began in 2007, and until 2010, Lake's home was attacked not once or twice, but 6 times. Each strike added to his conviction that he was chosen. Experts confirmed that the stones bombarding his house were indeed meteorites. But how could one home become a constant target for meteorite attacks? Or did the homeowner cleverly advertise his collection to sell? He indeed made some money by selling these stones, but whether a new batch will land in his garden is unknown. On a summer night in 1977, the Ohio State University's telescope, known as the Big Ear, detected a signal that became one of the most intriguing mysteries in their search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It was recognized as a strong narrowband radio signal, It was very intense and lasted for 72 seconds. There were signs of its interstellar origin. Researcher Jerry Amon was so struck by the characteristics that he wrote "Wow" on the printout with the signal's parameters. Originating from the depths of space, could it be an attempt at conscious communication? The signal came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, from the center of our galaxy. This place has a high potential for the probable existence of advanced civilizations there. However, scientists first tried to find evidence of its natural cosmic origin, or explained it by reflections or signals from space debris. Either way, the signal remains a unique event. Since that August night, it has never been repeated. In 1967, scientists Jocelyn Bell Burnell and Anthony Hewish, listening to the cosmos, stumbled upon a revolutionary discovery in astronomy. Usually, regular radio waves were emitted from a distant star that had not been observed in the sky before. These pulses were new and so precise that they raised an unusual speculation. Could it be some kind of signal, an attempt at communication, coming from another intelligent extraterrestrial civilization? The team of researchers humorously dubbed these signals as a message from a little green man. A more plausible explanation emerged. These signals were coming from a pulsar, a rotating neutron star. Neutron stars are dense remnants of a massive star that exploded. Electromagnetic radiation from their poles reaching the limits of Earth appears as pulses of radio waves. Which explanation do you prefer? If you've not yet heard of this legend about the UFOs and the actions of the aliens on our planet, then the story of the Black Knight is the most suitable beginning. In the 1950s, various messages about an unidentified object in orbit began to appear, and there was unexpected surprises there. Unlike any of the known flying objects to science, only in the 1960s was it possible to photograph it during a spaceflight, which caused a new wave of theories and rumors. Some insisted that the unidentified object was a marvel of alien technology and was observing Earth. However, upon closer examination, the outline of the Black Knight suggested a more pragmatic explanation. It resembled a thermal blanket, lost during a spaceflight. One of those that protected equipment from rays. So the strange signals initially attributed to the Black Knight can be considered either space debris or a natural phenomenon. But the myth of the wanderer in the desert ocean still sounds more interesting and intriguing. Here we have one of the most mysterious visitors to our orbit. The object named Oumuamua was identified as an interstellar comet. However, its unusual characteristics soon distinguished it among typical comets or asteroids. Its elongated shape was absolutely atypical for all those aliens we know, and hypotheses about its origin and nature immediately arose. Could it be a spacecraft controlled by alien beings? Another curious feature was its acceleration. It seemed to fly from the direction of the sun in an absolutely typical comet manner. They accelerate due to the gas release of volatile substances. However, no visible evidence of gas release from it was found. Then what was this strange object riding on? Imagine something similar to a jet plane, which leaves a visible trail in the air. In general, the object looked as if it was powered by a force from within. Although scientists lean towards its natural origin, who knows, maybe this alien probe is just well camouflaged. In a coal mine in Donetsk, people stumbled upon something mysterious, buried in the earth at a depth at about 3,280 feet. The curious artifact was a metal wheel, but it wasn't just any wheel. First of all, it was estimated to be an astonishing 300 million years old. However, by design, such an object could only be a product of advanced engineering. How was it possible in that period? The find baffled many and gave rise to wild assumptions. How could it be a metal part that was deliberately created 300 million years ago when there was no humans on Earth yet? Could there be some other race that lived here before us, or aliens that ruled here before us?
Dogu figurines are world-renowned ancient Japanese clay creations, and in Japanese, dogu translates to spacesuit. Their appearance is almost otherworldly. Large goggle-like eyes, a slim waist, and bodies covered in intricate patterns. This has led to numerous interpretations of the origin and meaning. For some, these peculiar features suggested a resemblance to beings from another world. Indeed, could these be the first depictions of extraterrestrials, dating back to a period in Japanese history from 13,000 years before the Common Era to 300 years before the Common Era? These fascinating events unfolded in the 1950s in a small town in the state of New Jersey, which became a hotspot for alien enthusiasts. The central figure of this story was Howard Menger, a man who presented himself as a contactee. This term refers to an individual who claims to have communicated with friendly extraterrestrials and even visited their ships. Howard even wrote books about it. He and his wife Connie described their encounters with extraterrestrials as a positive and pleasant communication experience. It is unproven whether Howard's experience are genuine events or another hoax, which were plentiful in America at that time. This ancient device, found in Greece, appears to be a marvel of engineering, thought invented long before modern computer technologies. Divers exploring a shipwreck near the island of Antikythera were intrigued by the device. Could it be part of an ancient analog computer used for astronomical calculations about the movements of planets and eclipses, or for navigation? This is the first discovered example of such complex mechanisms. It seems so advanced for its time of origin that it raises suspicion. If it's not a creation of the ancient Greeks, could it be a product of a more advanced extraterrestrial civilization? Perhaps this component is tangible evidence for historians and archaeologists that all of our ancient ancestors' technology might not be known to us. Another fascinating puzzle from the supposed ancient mysteries, the story of the Dropa stones, emerged in the 20th century. In China, a series of round polished discs were found, which are claimed to be thousands of years old. A legend surrounds them, alleging that the discs contain undeciphered messages. In the 1930s, a Chinese archaeologist discovered the stones in the mountains on the border of China and Tibet. The polished stones were about 12 inches in diameter, with a spinal groove running from the center on the surface of each, in which a series of tiny hieroglyphs were carved. In the 1960s, a mystification arose about an extraterrestrial race named the Dropa, who landed on Earth after crashing their flying ship. They were described as miniature fragile humanoids with large heads. Supposedly in Tibet, a burial site of about 700 unearthly beings were found near the places where the stones were discovered. To date, reliable evidence has not been published, but research by a Russian scientist showed that the granite discs contained a high concentration of cobalt and other metals. They are incredibly heavy in weight. So how could ancient people carve such small grooves and letters on their surface? In the 1970s, a book was written that combined fantastic fiction with known information about these discs. But to this day, light has not been shed on the mystery of the Dropa stones. After all, who brought these discs up the mountains of Tibet? This looks like a system of an ancient pipeline located in the Chinese province on Mount Baiganshan. These pipes are made of iron and come in various sizes, some of them small as a toothpick, while others are large enough to walk through. What makes them so intriguing is their age and location. They are believed to be thousands of years old and seem to form some sort of deliberate project. What can be said about them? Were they formed naturally, or are we looking at evidence of an ancient advanced civilization that we know nothing about? It was suggested that these pipes were part of an irrigation system or a prehistoric construction, but what's unclear is that they are located in a very unusual and inaccessible place. A more plausible hypothesis is that they are the remains of extraterrestrial activity. Adding some scientific data, Geologists have studied the pipes and have stated that they are actually fossilized tree roots. Over time, the organic material turned into minerals with a tubular structure. Another explanation is that the iron-rich water flowing through the pipes leaves a sediment that hardens and encases the pipes. The stone statues named Moai on Easter Island are an archaeological enigma lost on a patch of island amidst the ocean. These colossal figures were the first to greet the European explorers in the 18th century. This resource-poor island was the most peculiar place for such architecture. The local inhabitants, judging by the findings of their skulls, were small in structure and number. How are they able to erect such a multitude of sculptures across the island and even send them into the ocean? The number has been clarified. Archaeologists have determined that the Rapa Nui people carved these figurines between 1250 and 1500. But the second question remains unsolved. Why did they make these statues, and how were they able to carve them out of hard compressed volcanic ash? Were they idols of ancestors or spirits of the land? In any case, it's considered a titanic feat at its time. The intrigue lies in the hypotheses of how the statues were transported, vertically using ropes or carried on wooden sleds. Religious or hereditary symbolic purposes compelled the people to continue production. About 10,000 Moai figures guard Easter Island, but nowhere else in the world is there anything like it. So, could these heads have been created with the help of extraterrestrial beings? Do you suspect the same? Thanks to Google Earth and Google Maps, we are discovering more and more mysterious places on the planet. What do these incomprehensible zigzag patterns that were discovered in satellite photos in 2011 tell us? Complex grid patterns in the desert have sparked a lot of discussions, including proponents of the theory of messages from aliens. Given their precise contours and unnatural appearance, it is unlikely that such strange markings were made by farmers. The entire extensive artificial field resembles a tablet for spy satellites. In any case, both theories, a message from extraterrestrial civilizations or spy passions, did not promise anything good. These lines of zigzags are about 3 feet in width, stretching for about 300 feet, and to read such a message, one would undoubtedly need to ascend high. What if aliens were indeed trying to communicate with us in the only language available to them?
Sometimes such unusual things land on our Earth. And with that, our episode comes to an end. If you enjoyed this and would like to see the next part or something similar, then write about it in the comments. Like, subscribe to the channel, and right now, watch one of the 2 videos that appeared on your screen.